Well, tonight, all the media is focused on the delegate-rich state of Illinois, where the latest contest in the long GOP slog is currently being decided. A total of 69 delegates are up for grabs in the land of Lincoln, but the suspense that the primary is generating is somewhat limited, as most polls have Governor Mitt Romney leading his rivals comfortably. So tonight, no horse race for us. We're going to instead talk about something else the media is getting wrong. Congressman Paul Ryan's unveiling of the Republican 2012 budget earlier today has pundits on both sides of the aisle talking. Well, of course, the chattering class is cynically focusing on the political ramifications of the Ryan plan, but we here at Real News would like to spare you that discussion. It boils down to this: Republicans will say that the plan charts a course toward fiscal solvency and responsible government, and Democrats will say that Republicans want to kill seniors. So with the politics out of the way, we're free to focus our discussion on the substance behind the Ryan plan. The new budget calls for pro-growth tax reform, a reining in of government spending, and entitlement reform. But perhaps Ryan's most dramatic proposals, and those which are likely to receive the most scrutiny, are the proposed reforms of health care. According to estimates, the GOP plan would dramatically reduce health care spending, saving the government just over $2.4 trillion by the year 2022, 10 years from now. The savings include cuts and reforms to the President's Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, and a comprehensive Medicare reform plan based on a bipartisan effort between Mr. Ryan and Democratic Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon. So with the economy still on unsure footing and a debt crisis that increasingly weighs on American minds, voters are more hungry than ever for a plan that gets results. Is Paul Ryan's new budget that plan, or is this just another partisan document drawn up in order to contrast Republicans from the Democrat in the White House? Will Keene, what are your thoughts on all of this?
Well, before we sweep the politics under the rug, I want to return to them for one moment, because the politics illustrate the problems when we focus specifically on Medicare, which is a big part of Paul Ryan's plan. Now, let's talk about why Republican strategists, and as a footnote, whenever a strategist speaks, I would largely dismiss that as something substantive and let them surprise you that it actually turned out to be worthwhile. That's just a personal opinion. But why would they say this is a horrible, horrible idea to put out in an election year? I want to show you a poll from the Kaiser Family Foundation. This was taken just 1 month ago, and it asked Americans, all Americans and then specifically Republicans, would you like to keep Medicare as it is, or would you be willing to consider reform to Medicare? If we have that poll, I'd love for you guys to put it up. But what it showed is that among all Americans, 70% of them chose to keep Medicare as it is, compared to only 25% who were willing to look at changes to Medicare. Now look at this. It also asked Republicans specifically, would you be willing to consider changes to Medicare? And Republicans said 53%, I'd rather just keep it as it is, with 39% being willing to consider changes. Now I want to compare that to a poll that was taken a year ago from Marist, and it asked Tea Partiers, right? Vanguards of small government and liberty. Would you be willing to consider changing Medicare?
No, the Vanguards, they're sitting here.
I don't. We are all Tea Partiers to some degree. 70% of Tea Partiers said, do not touch Medicare. I do not want Medicare changed. The point of these statistics is to say this. So many times in these debates, we think about our opposition. And in this particular debate, one of the most important facing this country, we have persuading to do among our friends. We have persuading to do among ourselves. So let's talk for a moment real quick about Paul Ryan's proposals. If we could go back to that Kaiser Family Foundation poll one more time, guys, could you put that up? Because the question is so fascinating. They asked, would you be willing to consider changes to Medicare, or do you want to see it kept as is? Okay? Kept as is key. Here's what's going on with Medicare as it is right now. The average American, and I've told you guys this table, this statistic before, but I find it so fascinating. The average American, over his lifetime, is putting in $150,000 into Medicare. And by the time that life is over, he has taken out over $400,000 in value from healthcare costs that Medicare paid for. That is an unsustainable statistic. It cannot continue. So what can we do to change Medicare? Well, Paul Ryan has proposed a voucher system. What he would do, instead of have you enroll in Medicare at the age of, what is it these days, 65?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Is he would have the government issue you a voucher, a flat fee voucher, which you would then take into the marketplace and purchase a private insurance plan. What that allows the government to do is cap their costs. No more open-ended medical costs, right? What it does now is you pay for your premiums, you buy an insurance plan, and now all that open-ended cost is pushed on to the insurance companies and their risk in taking you on as a client instead of the government essentially serving that purpose. You have three ways for the government to reduce its role in Medicare or to fix their Medicare problem. First is taxes. I just showed you. We pay $150,000 over our lifetime and take out $400,000. If we raise Medicare taxes, your payroll taxes, we can start making up that gap. Problem is, that doesn't bring healthcare costs under control. So then you look at cost control measures. First, this is Paul Ryan's plan, which I just told you about, the voucher plan. The other option is basically the one that Democrats are arguing for, but not openly. They won't admit this is the case. They will say, we will keep Medicare, but they can't promise to keep it as is. What they promise to do, without words, is ration it. They will put caps on what kind of coverage they will cover, and they will tell doctors how much they will pay, and in the end, it will not be some open-ended medical care system. It'll be, here's exactly what's prescribed that you can get. Now, the only question in this debate is it better for you to have your choice with a voucher and take it into the market and roll the dice with your own coverage? Or is it better for the government to cap those costs itself? That's the debate that we need to have, and we need to have it honestly.
So, Jedediah, let me ask you this, looking at how Will has laid this out for us. Will giving folks a voucher, a government subsidy to go into the marketplace to buy their health insurance, won't that lead to rationing as well? Because no health insurance plan is going to be able to afford every miracle cure under the sun.
Well, no, I don't think it'll necessarily lead to rationing, and I think that would be a great contrast to an independent payment advisory board where you have a team of bureaucrats sitting down and actually saying this is a code A illness, this is a code B illness, this is a code C illness, this will be covered, this won't be covered. I think that you make a great point when you show that 70%, but I think most of that is because the Republicans don't do a very good job of articulating what you just articulated right here. People think when you say voucher, that means you're taking something away from them. That means that right now they have a guarantee, right, comfortable or not, and all of a sudden when you say voucher, that means you're taking away something I'm entitled to, when in reality what you're really doing is giving them choice, is giving them options.
It is taking something away from them. You are going to have less medical coverage than you would have under the current kept-as-it-is system. The point is the current kept-as-it-is system will not be around much longer. And Amy asks, is it rationing? It is rationing.
Right,
that is the language the left will use. The difference is it rationing via government fiat, or is it rationing by consumer choice?
Well, there's already a degree of rationing that goes on, right? I mean, Medicare doesn't cover everything. I mean, whenever we're talking about medical services, there is something finite about these commodities we're talking about. And so I think, well, you hit on the fundamental point, which is, do you want the government allocating this finite commodity? And as we realize, it's unsustainable as it is right now. And, you know, it brings me back to the thought that I think that people need to understand that end-of-life care, again, is the core issue here, is that people, because they have sort of no skin in the game, so to speak, in terms of the cost, are always there's no reason for the system to reform those end-of-life costs. So with what you're saying, the incentives are in place for people to want that blank check to deal with end-of-life care, which means that end-of-life care is going to continue to be inordinately expensive.
Right. I don't see this as rationing any more than what we have right now that's existing. I just see it as injecting choice into a system that is bound to have none.
You can just I can picture it already, that you've shifted the burden from the government to pay for these medical services to the insurance plan that the person has, handed over their government check to, and there's the elderly person saying, but this treatment is only going to, if you could only pony up the $200,000 it's going to cost, I could extend my life another 6 months, 1 year, and the insurance plan isn't going to do that. So at some point, the problem is that we have health care costs that are skyrocketing faster than inflation, that are going to be gobbling up our federal budget if we have it under Medicare.
And actually we can look right at what that looks like. We have a full screen, the long term too, if we can pull that up.